Thanks. Right, so the first idea is you can use this. It's a quote from the beginning of the critical anthology. In this section, you will see writers considering the idea that the established literature of Europe and North America has traditionally ignored or marginalized the experiences of non-Western peoples and cultures, seeing them as other, different, and invariably lesser. So, is that true of Heart of Darkness? Are you there, Zainab?
Yeah, I think it is true to an extent because it does present Marlowe's experience and Marlowe's views as right, and it kind of refers to all the native people as other or like less civilized, and it just really presents like the Western experience as the civilized, correct, what we should all be, kind of.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think he has got criticisms of the West and of the imperial powers. You know, he does criticize them, but the people that he sees there are definitely faces in the bush, aren't they? And the simple people and non-individualized.
I don't think Marlowe completely represents like the Western or European view, because he does stand slightly against.
He does.
He does like believe that it's got like a reason to it, and like he doesn't really like actively go against it.
Interesting. Yeah. There's that. So there's looking at the how the Congolese, or wherever it is the Congo, isn't it? Yeah. How they are presented, as well as how critical he is of Europeans. We got to talk about Conrad rather than Marlowe. So I've put also, just as a prompt for me, the bit in the Thames and the bit about Kent. So the bit in the Thames was where he says he's sailing out. It's not Marlowe, it's the person Marlowe's talking to. He's sailing out of London on this boat, and he says it was all darkness here once. You know, that Europe and Africa aren't that different. There's that little bit. And there's also the bit when he's sailing down the river and he says, we couldn't see any people. And then he said, it's not that surprising. If someone turned up in England with really extraordinarily powerful machinery and was killing and enslaving you, you wouldn't see many English people either.
Yeah.
So whether or not you think he is being, that's just worth considering. Is he saying that we're not that different? It's just, if we were in their shoes, that's what we would be like, that sort of idea. Anyway, those are two famous bits to remember as well. Let's move on to the next one. Whether or not you could use this quotation. Post-colonial critics, like Marxist and feminist critics, are interested in issues of power, dominance and control, but also in freedom and empowerment. So how much is he interested in freedom and empowerment of the Africans that Conrad himself saw?
I'm not sure that he is interested in their empowerment. He definitely discusses dominance and control and power.
Yeah.
But in their freedom and empowerment, like the critics that the articles that I have read have criticized him for not giving them language and not like allowing them to speak or using English, but in a very like giving them a very specific dialect.
Yes, it's quite interesting. The film that I was telling you about, Adam Hochschild, he is saying that Conrad was trying to document a genocide there and trying to shock people back in England with how awful conditions were in the Congo, and they are awful. In the novel, what he describes is awful. So in a way, you could say that's his bid to try to help free and empower those people. I'm just arguing back with you. Yeah. Thing is, he wrote it, look how awful this genocide is, and lots of people read it as, oh, it's a really interesting journey into the mind, it's metaphorical. And he's got, no, I've described people starving and people being worked to death and chained by the neck. Oh, it's an amazing study of the mind. It's been quite interesting what's happened to that book.
I think obviously because he did explore, I think it was Haiti or something, and he obviously saw things firsthand, so he could have been actually discussing the genocide and stuff. But I don't know, like, I think he was also traumatized from his trip, and that kind of shows in the book by the way he does, like, describe natives.
Yeah, and you want to stay with the is it a sort of campaigning novel and people have ignored the campaign is quite a nice area for like debate. You know, people have insisted on seeing it metaphorically and psychologically when it was actually showing you what's gone on in that country. Let's move on to number 4. Critics are keen to explore how different groups are presented, whose voices are heard. That's the same as the one we've said, whose attitudes and values the text seem to embody and support. Although I would say the pilgrims are quite interesting, that he is savage about the pilgrims, he's savage about their kind of murderous, stupid attitude, trying to kill anyone they can see. He's not entirely in favour of traditional European attitudes with those pilgrims. So you wouldn't say that he values and supports the European attitude looking at those pilgrims.
I agree with that.
Thank you. There we go. Writers taking this post-colonial position also focus on the complex relationships between colonisers and colonised, and on the language. So you've made some language points already, and that was really good. I don't know what I think about Kurtz and the love of the local people all love him, and he's got loads of heads in his garden. So that is a complex relationship.
I think also with Marlowe and the person who sails his ship or directs it, the person who does.
Yes.
It's a very weird relationship because he didn't see him. He sees a kinship with him.
Yes.
He wouldn't, like, he recognizes it, but holds back on it, I think, a little bit.
Yes, and you can see him as an extremely valuable, like, sailor who's much more able than everyone else on the boat as well. That is not a straightforward. That is interesting. I put down here, they also examine ways in which the literature of the colonial powers is used to justify colonialism through the perpetuation of images of the colonized as inferior. So whether you think this novel, rather than point to a genocide, actually has all these simple people that need someone like Kurtz to dominate them, and that's the takeaway message of the novel. They're just victims. They're just children. They're simple. They need help. Maybe you think that feeds in.
I think that shows a little bit in Kurtz's letter where he says exterminate the brutes or something.
Yes, quite extraordinary. And they seem to feel like he's a father to them. Yeah. So this is the critics reject the claims to universalism made on behalf of canonical Western literature and seek to show its limitations of outlook, especially its general inability to empathise across boundaries of cultural and ethnic difference. So I'd say this is the hardest concept, that some people think this is great literature because you understand the journey of the mind into madness, as if it's true for all people everywhere. And what post-colonial people are saying is, no, you're actually only talking about yourself, and often your masculinity, or as a man, you think you're being universal, whereas you're actually just triumphing, or what do I want to say? Triumph, something like that. Your own yourself. You think you're everything, whereas you are actually a construct of your own country. Oh, what do you think? Do you think you get it?
I get it. I'm not really sure about.
Yeah, I don't know if you. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's only going to go in as it's a journey of the mind. No, you're talking about a colonizer's mind. Do you know what I mean? That people are saying, oh, it's about madness, it's about truth, it's about power, it's about love. No, it's about a dominant culture committing genocide. It's that's where you'll get it in. So those are quotes. You don't need to use all of them, and the other ones you might find that you prefer. But those are the sorts of things that might pop into an essay on this novel. And I found some other critical ideas, which could form a title, but so could any of the ones above form a title. But this was incredible. I sent this to Dover Publications, Dark Allegory. So the whole thing's an allegory. There's no genocide here. It's all a metaphor. Describes the narrator's journey up the Congo River. His fascination with Mr. Kurtz, a mysterious personage who dominates through murder, the unruly, I think you picked up that word, didn't you? Naughty inhabitants. Masterly blend of adventure, character development, psychological penetration. Where's the genocide? It's all character and novel and psychology. It's not that they've ignored something massive there. So you could actually take that, and your title could be "What's Wrong with That?" If you wanted. I thought this was just interesting because he says that that they've got a crew of cannibals. But I thought he was very clear that they were only wanting to eat people because they weren't being fed.
Yeah, he was very clear about that. And
yes.
He did kind of praise them for not being, not doing in front of him or something. Yeah,
it's not that they want to eat people, it's just that they're starving. So I thought that was quite spark notes of what you want about. So this was an article called Making Their Absence Felt.
Yeah.
Have you read that one?
Yeah, I did.
I thought it was mad. Their very marginalisation makes their presence central. I thought that was mad.
I mean, I understand that by making, maybe he's hidden them to show the types of women, but I don't think that makes them central. He does present, a few types of, the working woman and the intended and the native and everything.
Yeah. I mean, you could see the whole imperial thing and colonising and the genocide as masculinity gone mad. But I don't think that brings in the women very much at all. Although one essay open to you would be comparing that Congolese woman, the woman who is something to Kurtz, this tribal woman, with the fiance. I've seen a bit on that. You could do that if that works.
I don't know how much I can make that into a full essay.
Yeah, whether or not it'll fit a full essay is debatable. But I've gone into these blue ones are all from the feminism criticism, which you can put both together if you want. Yeah. So focusing on male protagonists and women have marginal roles, that's clearly a criticism that you could make of this text. Repeating familiar cultural stereotypes. So whether or not you'd call her a dangerous seductress, or it's not just a female stereotype, it's how frightening these foreign women are, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's got lots of Amazon and myth around that woman, and then you've got the fiance at home, the self-sacrificing angel, and he doesn't really come away from those stereotypes. So you might say it's the same with men. Female independence gets a strongly negative connotation, which would be that woman.
Yeah.
Helplessness and renouncing all ambition and desire, would that be the fiance who's admirable?
I don't fully think so, because in the article about absence and women, they were talking about how she wasn't very passionate, and she kind of has dedicated her life to mourning Kurtz.
Yeah.
Not moving on.
And she's not praised for that, or it's not a good thing in the novel, or would you say it is?
I don't know if it's a good thing, but Marlowe definitely doesn't think that she can handle the truth.
Yes, that's it. And we've got here, to say that women are naturally timid or sweet or intuitive or dependent or self-pitying is to construct a role for them, is Conrad saying that the African woman is what women are, and the woman in Brussels, I think it is what we've trained them to be, you could say. So if you wanted to combine the feminist and the post-colonial thing, There might be an essay in it. But I think it's probably better on masculinity, throwing that in a bit. The masculinity is a cultural construction, and Kurtz does seem to be this alpha male. And a lot of the whole scheme is an incredibly scheme of men. So you might want to throw that in.
I read somewhere in the articles that we are all like the natives, and in order to remain civilized and stay sane, that you have to control yourself and whatever. So I think maybe that links into the traditional masculinity.
Yes, that's an extreme. That's an extremely colonizers' view, that these people need us. We've got the control and they haven't, and they need us. And look what happens when colonies stop being colonies, and they always have wars. Interesting. But anyway, here's the last one. This is Chinua Achebe. Have you read what he said?
Yeah, I read his essay.
Yeah, that he's really famous, and the essay is really famous. He's a famous writer. So what is the horror? Yeah, I'm never quite sure what the horror is. Is it the realization of his own wickedness, the horror of his own wasted life, or is it the collapse of civilized values, the great religion as a bonding element of society, or is it the author's reflection on the modern human condition, the existential angst of modern man? All of these meanings are available. The phrase is like a black hole which drags interpretation into itself. Yet we must also consider that the horror at the centre of the heart of darkness may be something more historical and precise, the disgusting savagery of King Leopold's private fiefdom, the Congo itself. So that's one view, and it was from this article, The Horror and the History. Achebe had seen it opposite, as Achebe had seen it as another European man othering Africans. But one of the articles, I don't know if it is this one, said, look, the way he presents Europeans is not very good. They're not great. Those pilgrims are awful. And this is another view. The jungle is essentially a background for the white protagonist's physical and inner journeys, that whole metaphor allegory idea, versus it's actually a savage place. What they're doing.
I think it kind of falls in between the two.
Oh, you can't have that. What are you talking about?
Like, it's a psychological journey because of Kurtz, and like because we're in Marlowe's head basically. But he's also criticizing the Europeans and kind of describing natives and everything. So
yeah,
both a physical and inner journey.
I can't see the inner journey very much. I can see a journey to a man who's like lost it, but I can't see that as an allegory. It doesn't interest me as much as the idea of him portraying the genocide and everyone reading it, ignoring it. Hello?
Yeah, I see slightly like the inner journey, and I think one of the articles, which was called Journeys, kind of discussed that a lot about the psychological.
Yeah, that sounds good. Do you think there's a lot of argument about the novel, so that's going to make it really good for you to write about. I think you're going to be able to. Have you watched the Adam Hochschild film?
Not yet. But
do watch it, but I don't think you need to watch all of it. Probably the first hour, and at the end of the first hour, it's got the bit about Conrad in it. But it does really it's got photographs of these people. This is in the time of cameras. You know, it's got photographs of the genocide and everything, and it does have a discussion. So watch about an hour of that. It's really worth it. And you can quote him as well. So should we stop this video here?